Niu Tongren visited his father's bedroom and noticed his father was unresponsive, deeply asleep. Suspecting supernatural mischief, he grew angry and exclaimed, "Foxes can be tolerated, but how can they disrupt my household? Guangong is revered as the demon-subduing emperor, yet why isn't he intervening now?" Determined, Niu Tongren set up a table to make an appeal to the Jade Emperor and voiced his frustrations about Guangong's apparent neglect. After a prolonged period, a loud shout echoed from above, signaling the arrival of Guandi. The deity reprimanded Niu Tongren. "How dare you, a mere scholar, be so insolent? Do you think my role is to chase foxes for your family without notifying me? How can you accuse me?" Niu Tongren was then ordered to be punished, receiving 20 lashes with a stick, leaving his legs bruised and bloody. Shortly thereafter, a black-faced general appeared, captured a fox, and took it away, putting an end to the disturbance. 3 years later, the daughter of the Jinan Yuji general was similarly troubled by a fox, which could not be expelled by any means. The fox confessed to the girl, "The only person I fear is Niu Tongren." The general, not knowing where to find Niu Tongren, could not seek his help. Coincidentally, Niu Tongren came to Jinan to take an exam and was insulted by a soldier at the provincial government office. Enraged, he went to the general's mansion to lodge a complaint. Upon hearing Niu Tongren's name, the general was overjoyed and treated him with great respect. After addressing the complaint, the general revealed his daughter's plight and implored Niu Tongren to expel the fox. Reluctantly, Niu Tongren reported the issue to Guandi. Soon, a golden-armored god descended. The fox, upon seeing the god, revealed its true form, resembling a dog, and howled in terror before being captured and led away. The golden-armored god declared, "Guandi spared you once before. This time you will not be forgiven." The fox was then tied up and taken away, ending the troubles for the general's daughter. 394. A Divine Woman. A scholar known as Mi from Fujian was once wandering in a county town when he got drunk. While passing through a market, he heard thunderous music coming from a grand house with a high gate. Curious, he inquired about the commotion and was told it was a birthday celebration. Despite the quiet exterior, the music continued to be loud and enchanting. Intrigued and emboldened by his inebriation, Mi Sheng purchased a birthday gift and sent his name card into the house without knowing the host. A man approached and asked, "Are you related to the elderly person here?" Mi Sheng responded, "No." The man then informed him, "This house belongs to a prominent and wealthy passerby. Since you're not a relative, what brings you here?" Regretting his boldness, Mi Sheng realized his name card had already been submitted. Soon, 2 young men, elegantly dressed, came out to welcome Mi Sheng and invited him inside. There, he saw an elderly man seated with several banquet tables arranged around him. The guests, who appeared to be affluent and noble, rose to greet Mi Sheng, and even the elderly man stood with the help of his cane. The young men explained, "Our father is old and frail, so he finds it hard to stand. We, his sons, express our gratitude on his behalf." Mi Sheng humbly acknowledged this, and another table was added for him near the elderly man. As the feast continued, a woman played music, and a screen was set up to separate the family area from the guests. As the banquet progressed, the drumming grew louder, making conversation impossible. Towards the end, the young men stood up, each holding an enormous wine cup to toast the guests. Despite his discomfort, Mi Sheng felt obliged to join in the drinking. After consuming 4 cups, he tried to leave but was held back by the young men. Overcome by the alcohol, he fell unconscious. In his stupor, he felt cold water splashed on his face and woke to find himself being helped out by the young men. He said his goodbyes and left, noticing that the household had already moved away when he passed by again later. After returning home, Mi Sheng encountered a man outside a liquor store who invited him for a drink. Although Mi Sheng didn't recognize the man, he decided to join him. Inside, he found Bao Zhuang, a fellow villager, already seated. The man introduced himself as Zhu, a mirror polisher in the city, and explained that he knew Mi Sheng from a recent birthday celebration. The 3 of them drank until evening, after which Bao Zhuang unexpectedly died on his way home. Bao Zhuang's father, unfamiliar with Zhu, accused Mi Sheng of murder. Upon finding serious injuries on Bao Zhuang, the government sentenced Mi Sheng to death and subjected him to severe torture. As Zhu had not been found, there was no confirmation that Mi Sheng was the culprit, so he remained imprisoned. Over a year later, an inspector reviewed the case and determined that Mi Sheng had been wrongfully accused. He was then released from prison. Returning home, Mi Sheng found his property gone and his reputation ruined. Seeking to clear his name, he set out again for the county town. Exhausted, he rested by the roadside and saw a small carriage approaching, accompanied by two maids in green. As the carriage passed, someone inside called to stop, and an unexpected encounter began. A green-clothed maid approached Mi Sheng and asked, "Are you surnamed Mi?" Mi Sheng, surprised, stood up and affirmed. The maid sighed. "How can you be in such poor circumstances?" Mi Sheng explained his situation. The maid inquired about his destination, and Mi Sheng shared it. The maid returned to the car, spoke a few words, then came back and invited Mi Sheng to the front of the car. He saw a pair of slender hands extend from the car, drawing aside the curtain. Mi Sheng took a peek and saw a beautiful girl seated inside. The girl addressed Mi Sheng. "You have endured great injustice. It's disheartening to hear. In the education officer's office, you can't navigate empty-handed. There's nothing to give you for your journey," she said, removing a pearl flower from her hair and handing it to Mi Sheng. "This can sell for 100 gold. Please keep it safely." Mi Sheng bowed, about to ask the girl's family name, but the car sped away before he could learn who she was. Holding the pearl flower, Mi Sheng realized it was decorated with luminous pearls, unlike anything from the mortal world, so he cherished it and continued on his journey. Upon reaching the county town, he filed a complaint, but the officials demanded money. Mi Sheng, reluctant to part with the pearl flower, decided to return. From that point, Mi Sheng depended on his brother and sister-in-law for his livelihood. Fortunately, his brother was kind-hearted and provided for him. Although poor, they could still afford to study. Years later, during the Qingming festival, Mi Sheng went to the county town to take the young scholar's exam and wandered into the deep mountains. Many people were hiking, and a group of women passed by on horses. Among them was the beautiful girl from the car the previous year. Recognizing Mi Sheng, she stopped and inquired about his destination. Mi Sheng detailed his situation, and the girl, surprised, asked, "Hasn't your status been restored yet?" Mi Sheng sorrowfully produced the pearl flower. "I can't bear to part with it, so I must pass the exam." The girl's face reddened slightly. She then instructed Mi Sheng to wait by the roadside and slowly rode away. After a while, a maid hurried over on a horse, handed Mi Sheng a package, and relayed a message. The lady says nowadays, government offices are like markets where officials openly accept bribes. Here is a gift of 200 taels of silver as capital for you to seek official status. Mi Sheng declined. "The lady has already shown me great kindness. I believe it's not difficult for me to pass the exam with my abilities. Such a large sum of money I dare not accept. I only wish to know the lady's name, to draw her portrait, burn incense, and worship her, and I will be content." The maid ignored his refusal, left the package on the ground, and departed. From then on, Mi Sheng had enough money but never sought to curry favor with the powerful for fame. Eventually, he passed the county school exam with top honors. He gave the silver from the girl to his brother, who was skilled at managing wealth, and within 3 years he restored their family's finances. Coincidentally, the Fujian prefect at the time was a disciple of Mi Sheng's ancestors and took great care of him. The brothers became prosperous, but Mi Sheng remained honest and upright, refraining from seeking favors for wealth or status. One day, a guest in a fur coat riding a well-fed horse arrived at Mi Sheng's door, unknown to the household. Mi Sheng came out and recognized the guest as Fu Gongzi. Welcoming him in, they exchanged pleasantries, and Mi Sheng prepared wine and dishes to entertain him. The guest, though busy, stayed for the meal. Once the food was served, Fu Gongzi requested a private conversation with Mi Sheng. In the inner room, Fu Gongzi knelt, and Mi Sheng, alarmed, asked, "What is the matter?" Fu Gongzi, with sadness, replied, "My father has encountered a great calamity, and I need help from the prefect. My brother is unable to assist." Mi Sheng refused. "Even though he is related to me through generations, I am reluctant to trouble others with personal matters." Fu Gongzi, weeping, implored on the ground, but Mi Sheng insisted, "We are merely friends who shared a drink. How can I compel others at the cost of losing my honor?" Fu Gongzi, both embarrassed and angered, stood up and left abruptly. The next day, Mi Sheng was alone at home when a maid in green entered. Recognizing her as the one who had previously delivered silver for the lady, Mi Sheng stood in surprise. The maid rebuked him. "Have you forgotten about the pearl flower?" Mi Sheng quickly responded, "How could I? I would never dare forget." The maid continued, "The Fu Gongzi who visited yesterday is the lady's own brother." Upon hearing this, Mi Sheng was secretly pleased and said, "This is difficult for me to believe. If the lady herself comes to speak, I am willing to go to any lengths. Otherwise, I dare not comply." The maid departed. At dawn, she returned, announcing, "The lady is here." Before she could finish, the lady entered the room, silently weeping. Mi Sheng knelt and said, "If not for the lady, where would I be today? What do you command? How dare I not obey?" The lady, through her tears, replied, "Those who seek favors often look down on people, and those who ask for help often fear them. I have been up all night, suffering hardships, all out of fear. What more is there to say?" Mi Sheng comforted her. "The reason I hesitated was because I hoped to see you again. It is my fault you endured the night's suffering." As he spoke, he lightly touched her sleeve. The lady, furious, scolded, "You are truly not honorable. You forget the kindness shown to you and seek to exploit others in their distress. I have misjudged you." She stormed out and boarded her carriage. Mi Sheng chased after her, apologizing and kneeling in her path, while the maid also pleaded on his behalf, softening the lady's anger. From the carriage, she addressed Mi Sheng. "To be honest, I am not a mortal. I am a divine woman. My father is the governor of Nanyue. He unintentionally offended the local official and faces punishment from the Jade Emperor. Without the local prefect's official seal, we cannot save him. If you remember my past kindness, use a piece of yellow paper to request the seal for me." With those words, the carriage departed. Mi Sheng returned to his room, scared and sweating. He decided to borrow the official seal from the prefect under the pretext of exorcising evil. However, the prefect believed that exorcising evil was akin to using witchcraft to manipulate people and refused to lend the seal. Undeterred, Mi Sheng bribed the prefect's confidant with a substantial amount of gold, and the confidant agreed to use the seal, but could not find an opportunity to do so. When Mi Sheng returned, he found the maid waiting at the door of his house. After Mi Sheng explained the situation to her, she walked away silently, seemingly blaming him for not trying hard enough. Mi Sheng hurried after her, pleading, "Go back and tell the lady, if the matter cannot be done, I am willing to sacrifice my own life." Back home, Mi Sheng was restless, unable to sleep, and unsure of what to do next. By chance, the prefect's favorite concubine expressed a desire to buy pearls. Seizing the opportunity, Mi Sheng offered the pearl flower. The concubine, enamored by it, secretly acquired the seal for Mi Sheng. He quickly placed the sealed yellow paper into his bosom and returned home, where he met the maid again. Proudly, Mi Sheng exclaimed, "I have succeeded in the mission. For years, I clung to my possessions despite poverty, but now I have given them up for their rightful owner." Mi Sheng then recounted to the maid how he exchanged the pearl flower for the seal and remarked, "I do not regret parting with the gold. Please tell the lady I wish to have the pearl flower back." A few days later, Fu Gongzi visited to express his gratitude and brought a gift of 100 taels of gold. Mi Sheng, displeased, said, "I acted out of gratitude for your sister's past kindness to me. No amount of gold can replace a person's reputation and integrity." Despite Fu Gongzi's repeated insistence, Mi Sheng, still upset, refused the gift. Fu Gongzi, recognizing Mi Sheng's resolve, left, saying, "This matter cannot be left unresolved." The following day, the maid in green, sent by the divine lady, returned with 300 pearls, saying, "These should suffice as compensation for your pearl flower, right?" Mi Sheng replied, "I value the pearl flower, not these pearls. If I were given a treasure worth 10,000 gold at that time, I would have sold it to become rich. I cherished the pearl flower and accepted poverty. For what purpose? The lady is a divine being. How could I have any other aspirations? I am grateful to have repaid even a fraction of the lady's kindness, and I have no regrets in life." The maid placed the pearls on the table, and Mi Sheng bowed to them before returning them. A few days later, Fu Gongzi returned. Mi Sheng prepared wine and dishes, and Fu Gongzi's servant went to the kitchen to cook. The two men sat across from each other, drinking and laughing like old friends. Fu Gongzi tasted a kind of rice wine given to Mi Sheng by a guest, and he found it so delicious that he drank hundreds of cups, his face turning slightly red. He said to Mi Sheng, "You are honest and upright. We brothers should have known you sooner. My little sister's judgment was much better than ours. My father is immensely grateful for your kindness and wants to marry my sister to you, but he fears you might reject her due to the difference between humans and divine beings." Mi Sheng was both surprised and delighted, unsure of how to respond. Fu Gongzi took his leave, saying, "Tomorrow night is the 9th day of July. With the new moon and the appearance of the Chenggo star and the weaving girl star signaling a girl getting married, it is a perfect time. You can prepare the green hut." The following night, the divine woman was indeed sent over, and the wedding was conducted ceremoniously, just like any ordinary marriage. 3 days later, the divine woman rewarded Mi Sheng's brother and sister-in-law, as well as the servants and maids in the house. She was virtuous and treated her sister-in-law as if she were her mother-in-law. However, after several years, she had not borne any children, and advised Mi Sheng to take another concubine. Mi Sheng refused. It so happened that Mi Sheng's brother, who was doing business in Jiangsu and Zhejiang, bought a concubine for Mi Sheng. This concubine, named Boshi, was graceful and beautiful, and both Mi Sheng and his wife were very fond of her. One day, the divine woman noticed a pearl flower in Boshi's hair that resembled the one from years ago. Upon closer inspection, she realized it was indeed the same flower and asked Boshi about its origin. Boshi explained, "After a prefect's favorite concubine died, her maid stole this pearl flower and sold it. My father thought it was a bargain and bought it. I adored it. Being his only daughter and having no brothers, I got everything I wanted. After my father's death and the family's decline, I was sent to live with my aunt, Mrs. Gu. She tried to sell the pearl flower many times, but I was so attached to it that I even threatened to jump into a well if it was sold. Thus, it has been preserved until now." Mi Sheng and his wife sighed, saying, "How remarkable that this pearl flower has returned to its original owner after 10 years. The divine woman then produced another pearl flower and said, "This has been unpaired for a long time." She gave both pearl flowers to Boshi and personally placed them in her hair. After Boshi withdrew, she inquired about the divine woman's background, but everyone in the house was reluctant to discuss it. In private, Boshi told Mi Sheng, "I believe the lady is not a mortal. She has an ethereal quality. Yesterday, when she gave me the flowers, I noticed her innate beauty, which is not merely due to good features but seems to emanate from her very being." Mi Sheng smiled without commenting. Boshi continued, "I want to test her. If she is truly a divine being, then if a mortal prays to her in a secluded place, she will know." Boshi admired the divine woman's exquisite embroidered socks, but dared not ask for them. So she burned incense and prayed in her boudoir. The next morning, the divine woman rummaged through her sewing box, found a pair of embroidered socks, and instructed her maid to give them to Boshi. Mi Sheng observed this and could not help but laugh. When the divine woman asked why, he explained Boshi's plan. The divine woman, amused, playfully scolded, "What a clever girl!" Her affection for Boshi grew, and Boshi in turn served her with increasing respect, rising early to bathe, incense, and present herself tidily before the divine woman each day. Eventually, Boshi gave birth to twin sons, and Mi Sheng and his wife each named one of them. Even as Mi Sheng aged to 80 years, the divine woman remained as youthful as ever. When Mi Sheng was on his deathbed, the divine woman commissioned a carpenter to make a coffin twice the usual size. After Mi Sheng passed away, the divine woman did not weep. When the family left and returned, they found the divine woman lying peacefully in the coffin with him. They were buried together, and the story of the big coffin tomb is still told to this day. Mr. Yishi remarked, "Mrs. Fu was indeed a divine being, and Boshi could recognize her true nature. What kind of wisdom or magic did she possess?" From this, it is evident that human insight can sometimes surpass even the abilities of gods. 395. XIANGQUN Yanzhong, hailing from Yan'an, Shanxi, lived closely with his brother Yanbo. When Yanbo passed away at 30, followed soon after by his wife, Yanzhong was deeply saddened. He often thought about adopting a son to carry on their lineage, But tragedy struck again when his own wife died shortly after giving birth to their son. Concerned that a new wife might mistreat his son, Yanzhong decided against remarrying and considered buying a concubine instead. During this time, he encountered Liang Sheng, a deceased classmate, who warmly invited him to his new home. Drunk and disoriented, Yanzhong followed Liang Sheng inside, only to realize it was not the same house he remembered. Inside Liang Sheng's home, Yanzhong waited for wine while observing a woman riding a donkey, accompanied by a young boy who bore a striking resemblance to his late brother, Yanbo. This discovery moved Yanzhong deeply, and he learned that the boy was indeed his nephew, Axiao. This encounter led Yanzhong to his brother's former residence, now neat and new, where he met his sister-in-law. She informed him about Yanbo's life after death, including his concubine Ganshi and their two sons, Ada and Axiao. Realizing he was surrounded by spirits, but undeterred by fear due to his affection for his brother, Yanzhong became involved in a conflict with the Li family, defending Axiao and reuniting with his brother Yanbo. The reunion was emotional, and Yanbo shared his thoughts about their family situation in the afterlife. Yanzhong also encountered XIANGQUN, living with Yanbo's family after losing her parents. Moved by her quiet demeanor and loyalty, Yanzhong began to admire her deeply, especially for her care of Axiao. His feelings for XIANGQUN grew stronger, and he pondered marrying her. Despite uncertainties, Yanzhong remained resolved, influenced by his affection for his brother's family and his growing attachment to XIANGQUN. He spent a restless night contemplating his future and the possibility of marrying XIANGQUN. The next morning, Yanzhong, rising early, expressed his loneliness to his brother. "I'm alone without a spouse. I rely on you, elder brother, to help me with this." Yanbo reassured him, acknowledging their family's resources. "We're not lacking in wealth. Surely someone will find a match for you, but be cautious. Although there are beautiful women in the underworld, it might not be advantageous for you." Yanzhong countered, reflecting on ancient traditions. People in the past married ghost wives without harm. Why should it be different now? Yanbo, understanding his brother's sentiment, replied with caution. "XIANGQUN is a good choice. However, rushing into marriage with a ghost who suffers eternal bleeding from a needle in the Renying acupoint is unwise." Yanzhong said, "Marrying XIANGQUN could also take care of Axiao." Yanbo just shook his head. Yanzhong begged persistently. His sister-in-law said, "Why not catch XIANGQUN, forcibly prick her with a needle to test it out? If it doesn't work, then forget it." So she held the needle and went out, and just outside the door she met XIANGQUN, hurriedly grabbing her wrist only to see bloodstains on her hand, still wet. It turned out that XIANGQUN had already heard Yanbo's words outside the door and had already tried it herself. The sister-in-law let go of her hand, smilingly went back to tell Yanbo, "She has long been interested in little uncle. What are you worrying about for her?" When Yan's wife heard this, she was furious, rushed to XIANGQUN, pointed at her and cursed, "You shameless slut! Do you want to elope with little uncle? I won't let you have your way." XIANGQUN was both ashamed and angry, crying and wanting to die, causing a commotion in the family. Yanzhong felt very ashamed, bid farewell to his brother and sister-in-law, and took Axiao out. His brother said, "You go back for now. Don't let Axiao come again," to avoid diminishing his yang energy. Yanzhong agreed. After returning home, Yanzhong deliberately exaggerated Axiao's age, telling people that he was the illegitimate child born from the sale of slaves by his brother earlier. Because Axiao's appearance closely resembled Yanbo's, everyone believed that he was Yanbo's son. When Yanzhong taught Axiao to read, he always made him hold the book and sit in the sun to read aloud. At first, Axiao felt bitter, but as time went on, he got used to it. In the scorching heat of June, the table was too hot to touch, but Axiao played and read without complaining. He was also very clever, reading half a volume of books every day. At night, he slept with his uncle and often recited the articles he had learned for him to listen to. Yanzhong was very pleased. However, he never forgot XIANGQUN, so he didn't want to marry another woman. One day, two matchmakers came to propose marriage for Axiao. Yanzhong was very anxious because there was no woman to handle the hospitality. Suddenly, Ganshi walked in from outside and said to Yanzhong, "Don't be angry, little uncle. I brought XIANGQUN here. Last time she was too bold to take matters into her own hands, so I deliberately humiliated her. But you are talented, little uncle. Who else should she be with if not you? Yanzhong was overjoyed to see XIANGQUN standing behind Ganshi. He respectfully asked his sister-in-law to sit down and then went out because there were guests in the hall. When he returned a while later, he saw that Ganshi had already left. XIANGQUN took off her makeup and went into the kitchen, where the sound of chopping echoed. Soon, delicious dishes were served one after another. After the guests left, Yanzhong went inside and saw XIANGQUN sitting elegantly. They exchanged bows and became engaged. In the evening, XIANGQUN still wanted to sleep with Axiao, but Yanzhong said, "I need to use my own yang energy to warm him. He cannot leave me." So he asked XIANGQUN to stay in another room, but he would visit her every night for a few drinks and some intimacy. XIANGQUN treated Yanzhong's son from his previous marriage as her own, and Yanzhong grew to love her even more, finding her extremely virtuous. One night, the couple was having a very harmonious and joyful conversation. Yanzhong jokingly asked XIANGQUN, "Are there beautiful women in the underworld too?" XIANGQUN thought for a long time before answering, "I haven't seen any. There's only the neighbor's daughter, Wei Lingxian, who everyone says is pretty. But actually, she's just average looking. She just knows how to dress up. I've known her for a long time, but I've always looked down on her for being too flirtatious. If you want to see her, I can call her over right away. Just be careful with someone like her." Yanzhong immediately wanted to meet her upon hearing this. XIANGQUN picked up a pen as if to write a letter, but then she threw down the pen and said, "No, I can't do it." After much pleading from Yanzhong, XIANGQUN finally said, "Just don't let her enchant you." Yanzhong agreed. XIANGQUN drew a few strokes on the paper, like a charm, and then burned it outside the door. After a while, they heard the door curtain move and the curtain hook jingle, followed by the giggles of a woman. XIANGQUN got up and pulled a woman inside. She had a tall bun on her head, which looked just like a painted beauty. XIANGQUN pulled her to sit by the bed, and the two women drank and talked about their separation. When the woman first saw Yanzhong, she was shy and covered her mouth with a red sleeve, barely speaking. After a few drinks, she revealed her true self, joking and laughing with Yanzhong without any reservation. Gradually, she even stretched out her foot to press against Yanzhong's clothes. Yanzhong was so entranced and bewildered that he didn't know where his soul had flown off to. However, he couldn't ignore XIANGQUN's presence, and XIANGQUN was also keeping an eye on Wei Lingxian, never leaving her side for a moment. Suddenly, Wei Lingxian got up, opened the door curtain, and walked out, with XIANGQUN quickly following her and Yanzhong following them. Wei Lingxian even held Yanzhong's hand and pulled him into another room. XIANGQUN was extremely resentful but helpless, so she returned to the room angrily, letting them do as they pleased. Not long after, Yanzhong came back, and XIANGQUN blamed him, saying, "If you don't listen to me, you won't be able to get rid of her in the future." Yanzhong suspected that XIANGQUN was jealous of Wei Lingxian, and they parted unhappily. On the second night, Wei Lingxian didn't come on her own. XIANGQUN was extremely annoyed and ignored her. Yet, Wei Lingxian still came and took Yanzhong's hand, leading him away. This continued for several nights, and XIANGQUN couldn't tolerate it anymore. When she saw Wei Lingxian coming, she scolded her in every possible way but was helpless to drive her away. After more than a month, Yanzhong fell seriously ill and began to regret his actions. He asked XIANGQUN to sleep with him to avoid Wei Lingxian's entanglement. XIANGQUN also remained vigilant day and night, but with a slight negligence, Yanzhong was once again lured away by Wei Lingxian. XIANGQUN couldn't contain her anger and chased Wei Lingxian out with a rolling pin. Wei Lingxian in turn fought back angrily, and the two women got into a physical fight. XIANGQUN, being weak, was injured in her hands and feet by Wei Lingxian. Seeing this scene, Yanzhong's condition worsened. XIANGQUN cried out, "How can I face my sister now?" After a few more days, Yanzhong died. Initially, Yanzhong saw two constables carrying documents walking in, and he unknowingly followed them. Along the way, he worried about not having travel expenses and invited the constables to his brother's place. When they arrived at Yanbo's house, Yanbo was shocked to see him and asked, "What has my brother been up to lately?" Yanzhong replied, "Nothing much, just got a ghostly illness." He then told his brother the truth. Yanbo listened and said, "I see." He took out a bag of silver and handed it to the constable, saying, "Please accept this. My brother is not guilty of a capital crime. Please release him. I will send my son with you, and nothing will happen to him." He called Ada over to join the constables for a drink. Then he went back inside and informed the family about the situation. He instructed Gan Shi to go next door and call Wei Lingxian. Soon after, Wei Lingxian arrived, saw Yan Zhang, and attempted to flee. Yanbo grabbed her, pulled her back, and scolded her. "You shameless woman. You were promiscuous in life, and now you're a despicable ghost. You were already disliked by others, yet you dare to come and harm my brother." He slapped her several times, disheveling her hair and diminishing her appearance. After a while, an old woman walked in and knelt down, begging Yanbo to spare Wei Lingxian. Yanbo rebuked the old woman for indulging her daughter's promiscuity and scolded her for a while before allowing her to lead Wei Lingxian away. Yanbo escorted Yanzhang back, feeling dizzy and barely aware of reaching their doorstep, walking straight into the bedroom. Suddenly, Yanzhang woke up, realizing he had just died. Yanbo, upon seeing Yanzhang and XIANGQUN, blamed her, saying, "Your sister and I thought you were capable and virtuous, so we let you follow my brother. We didn't expect you to hasten his death instead. If it weren't for propriety, I would beat you again." XIANGQUN felt ashamed and fearful, crying softly and kneeling in front of Yanbo to apologize. Yanbo saw Axiao and exclaimed, "My son looks just like a living person." XIANGQUN offered to cook, but Yanbo declined, saying, "My brother's affairs are not settled yet. I don't have time to eat." By this time, Axiao was 13 years old and growing attached to his father. Seeing his father leaving, he cried and followed him. His father comforted him, saying, "You will be happiest with your uncle. I will come back after I leave." With that, he vanished without a trace. Since then, there has been no news of him. Later, Axiao married and had a son. He also died at 30. Yanzhang raised his grandson alone, just as he had lived with his nephew. When Yanzhang turned 80, Axiao's son was already in his 20s, so Yanzhang let him establish his own household. On the other hand, XIANGQUN never had children. One day, XIANGQUN told Yanzhang, "I will go down to the underworld first to prepare a place to live." After saying this, she dressed up and lay down on the bed, passing away peacefully. Yanzhang did not grieve. Half a year later, he also passed away. Mr. Yishi said, "There are few people in the world as loving as Yanzhang. Such good people should have a long and healthy life." Yanbo had a posthumous child in the underworld because of Yanzhang's sincere love for his deceased brother, which moved the heavens. If such sentiments did not exist in the human world, would there be such luck in the heavens? There must be many sons born in the underworld who are willing to inherit the family estate in the mortal world, but I am afraid that brothers who have already inherited the estate of an extinct lineage may not be willing to take them in and support them.